Hello and welcome back to my channel, Learn and Educate. Today, I'll give you an explanation of the novel The Story of My Life by Helen Keller. Let's learn something about the author first. On 27 June 1880, Helen was born to Kate and Arthur Keller in Tuscumbia, Alabama. Helen lost her eyesight and hearing following a mysterious fever that struck her when she was 19 months old. Under Miss Sullivan's guidance, Helen began to read and write and discovered the world of knowledge. Overcoming one obstacle after another, one day Keller graduated from Radcliffe College in Cambridge, Massachusetts, at the age of 24. The first deaf-blind person to earn a Bachelor of Arts degree. Helen's first book, The Story of My Life, was published in 1903 when she was just 23 years old. Later, she wrote many more books and articles on various subjects such as socialism and women's rights. Keller used her writing to express her opinion on issues close to her heart. Helen traveled extensively around the world and worked tirelessly for the causes she believed in. In 1964, Keller was awarded the highest civilian honor of the US, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. On 1st June 1968, this remarkable woman breathed her last, leaving behind a legacy that would inspire countless others. Now, before I tell you the story, I would like to give you an introduction of this novel. The Story of My Life is the story of Helen Keller's life up to the time when she fulfilled a lifelong ambition of graduating from Radcliffe College. The Story of My Life is a remarkable autobiography. Autobiography means when an author writes about himself or herself, about his or her own life, then that is known as the autobiography. So this is an autobiography of a remarkable woman, that is Helen Keller. Remarkable because it gives us access to the process by which a deaf and blind girl emerges from the prison of her disability, becomes proficient in several languages, and goes on to read not only the literature of several languages but mathematics and science as well. Helen Keller's story fills us with a deep sense of respect for the woman who lived through amazing experiences and by writing about them touched millions of lives around the world. Helen Keller and the people who helped her created a world of hope for the differently abled. Now, the story of Helen Keller's life begins. Helen Keller was a normal child till she was 19 months old. She was born in a well-placed and well-connected family. An illness robbed her of sight and hearing, plunging her into darkness and silence. Keller recalls her infancy with pleasure and without grieving over her fate. Helen Keller begins the task of writing her autobiography. Till her illness, Keller lived in a little house built close to the family house. She has happy memories of the wonderful garden. The garden comforted her when she was upset and always delighted her with its beautiful variety of flowers. She experienced joy and comfort when she spent time there. Being in the garden made her happy, and thus she called that garden as the paradise of her childhood. As a first child, Helen's birth was greeted with joy. Her mother decided to name her Helen Everett after her own mother. But her father forgot the name and told the minister to name her Helen Adams. Keller was a curious and energetic baby who began uttering syllables and broken words when she was just 6 months old. But Helen's happy childhood lasted only a year and a half. She fell ill with a mysterious illness which the doctors called congestion of the stomach and the brain. The entire family was overjoyed when her fever left her as mysteriously as it had come. None of them was aware that the fever had robbed Helen of her ability to see and hear. That means Helen lost the ability to see and hear. Helen's memories of her illness are of her mother's tenderness of taking care of her and of the way in which the light seemed to grow dimmer and dimmer as she lost her sight. Keller's memories of the period after her illness are of staying close to her mother. Gradually, with her help, she learned to communicate with her family through gestures and signs. She was also able to do small household chores like folding and putting away clean clothes. She was always called when there were visitors, and one day, in an effort to look good before them, she dressed up very comically. Gradually, she realized that she was different from other people as she could not communicate like them. This made her very frustrated and angry. Martha Washington, the daughter of the African American cook, was her best friend. Martha and she would go hunting for fowl eggs and enjoyed watching the cows being milked. Keller admits to being naughty and getting into mischief with Martha. One day, when she had a pair of scissors in her hand, she cut off Martha's hair and Martha did the same to her. Another day, a serious accident took place when Keller was trying to dry her apron too close to the fire and her clothes caught fire. She was saved by her old nurse. Then one day, Helen learned to use a key and locked her mother in the pantry for 3 hours. This convinced her parents that she needed to be controlled and educated. Keller began to learn to live with her disabilities, but her inability to communicate with others made her angry and frustrated. She started becoming naughty and unkind. However, her life was not full of sadness and depression all the time. As time went by, Keller's desire to communicate with the world became more intense. Her ability to express herself affected her deeply, and she often had crying fits that left her exhausted. Her parents understood the cause of her outbursts but did not know how to help her. Then Keller's mother recalled a story she had read in American Notes by Charles Dickens. It was about a deaf and blind girl called Laura Bridgman. She had been successfully educated, but Laura Bridgman's teacher, Dr. Howe, was dead, and it was a big question for Helen's parents that who would teach Helen now. When Keller was 6 years old, her father took her to Baltimore to meet an oculist. Oculist is an optician. Keller enjoyed the train ride and was very happy at meeting new people. The oculist, Dr. Chisholm, suggested that they meet Dr. Alexander Graham Bell in Washington. Dr. Bell understood Keller's science and was kind to her. Keller felt very happy to meet someone who understood her, dreaming that the meeting would help her move out of her dark world. Dr. Bell asked her father to write to the Perkins Institution in Boston and ask for a teacher. Her father did that and in a few weeks got a letter that a teacher has been found. In this way, hope entered Keller's life. Keller describes the entry of a teacher into her life. She admits to being alone and lost before the arrival of her teacher. On the day when her teacher was to arrive, she realized that someone new was coming and waited on the steps of the porch. Porch is an open room attached to the front of the house. Keller heard approaching footsteps and thinking that it was her mother, reached out to her. Keller was given a hug by her new teacher. That was the beginning of the transformation of her life. Keller was then 3 months short of her 7th birthday. Miss Sullivan gave Keller a doll that had been sent by the blind children of the Perkins Institution. She spelled out the word doll in Keller's hand and the little girl was immediately interested. Even though she did not understand the meaning of the word, she learned to spell other words as well. One day, her teacher tried telling her that words have meanings. But Keller simply could not make the connection between spelling and meanings. In frustration, she threw down her new doll and broke it. Then her teacher took her outside and placed her hand under water pouring from a spout. While cool water was flowing on her hand, teacher spelled out water on her other hand. Then Keller suddenly understood the connection between the word and the cool liquid flowing over her hand. This realization woke her to the idea of language. She became eager to learn the names of many things. Later that day, when she felt the broken bits of her doll, Keller experienced regret for the first time. But that night, she went to bed happy and eager to learn more words. Now, she was no longer restricted to gestures. After this, Keller began to constantly connect the world around her with words. Miss Sullivan's teaching was not restricted to bookish knowledge. Rather, she taught Keller to observe the world and understand it. She also introduced Keller to the beauty of nature. One warm spring day, Miss Sullivan took Keller to sit by the river Tennessee and explained to her the world of nature. With her teacher's help, Keller learned to enjoy the bounty and the beauty of nature at an early age. But an unpleasant accident taught her that nature is not always gentle and kind. One day, Keller and Miss Sullivan went for a walk. Keller climbed a tree and became so comfortable in the branches that they decided that they would eat their lunch there. Miss Sullivan left Keller sitting in the tree while she went away to get some food. But suddenly, the weather changed and dark clouds covered the sun. A strong wind began blowing and almost knocked Keller off the tree. The little girl became very afraid and out of control to get off the tree. Just then, her teacher returned and helped her to come down. Keller became very scared to climb a tree after that incident. But then one day, the lovely fragrance of a mimosa tree once again attracted her, and overcoming her fear, she climbed the tree once again. After that, she spent many happy hours in the branches of the mimosa tree. Once she had been introduced to language, Keller became keen to learn it as soon as possible. It was not an easy task. A normal child acquires language naturally, while the disabled one has to learn it with a lot of effort. The difficulty is enhanced by the fact that the deaf and blind are unable to either hear the tone of voice or see the face of the speaker. This makes it more difficult for them to learn the art of conversation. One day, Keller asked her teacher for the meaning of the word love. Her teacher tried to explain but was unable to make the child understand completely, as she did not understand things that she could not touch or feel. A few days later, Keller was putting together beads of different sizes with a piece of string. She was concentrating hard so as not to make mistakes. At this point, her teacher told her that what she was doing was called thinking. For the first time, Keller understood the meaning of an abstract idea. After this, she also understood the meaning of love. As Keller's vocabulary and ideas expanded, she was able to ask Miss Sullivan more questions and thus expand her knowledge about the world. Miss Sullivan taught Keller through innovative and interesting ways. She used the great outdoors and the sense of touching to impart her lessons. In this way, the world of geography, science, and arithmetic opened to the little girl. Keller progressed from words to sentences. To enable her to read, Miss Sullivan gave her little pieces of cardboard with words printed in raised letters. Keller enjoyed arranging those words into sentences. She then physically represented the idea expressed in the sentences. For example, she pinned the word girl on herself and stood in a wardrobe in order to illustrate a sentence which said, "Girl is in wardrobe." She played this game for hours with her teacher. Keller soon began to read books. Miss Sullivan's lessons were always exciting and interesting. She and her teacher enjoyed walking to the river where Keller learned geography from Miss Sullivan's descriptions of the earth and through the models she created out of the clay by the river. Once, someone sent Keller a collection of fossils. This got her interested in the prehistoric world that was full of strange beasts and plants. Similarly, the gift of a shell made her curious about life in the sea. Observing a lily plant taught her the process by which flowers bloomed, while tadpoles in a bowl helped her understand the process of their growth. Keller credits her teacher with using every object as a learning opportunity and kindling her interest in it. The 8th chapter reveals the depth of transformation in Keller. The child who had thoughts only of herself began to look beyond herself. Keller's first Christmas after Miss Sullivan's arrival was an enjoyable one. For the first time, Keller participated in the celebrations, not only receiving gifts but also making gifts for others. On Christmas, she was invited by the Tuscumbia school children to see their Christmas tree. She participated with full enthusiasm in the festivities and even handed out gifts to other children. In the excitement of doing this, Keller forgot to look at her own gifts. The night before Christmas, Keller hung her stocking and lay in bed, wondering what Santa Claus would do when he came. She was the first person to wake up the next morning and found her room full of gifts. The best gift, however, was the little canary. Canary is a small songbird. So what was the gift? The best gift was the little canary given to her by her teacher. Little Tim was its name. Was so tame that he ate out of her hand. Keller took good care of the bird, cleaning his cage every day and giving him fresh food and water. But one day she left the cage on a window seat for a short while. When she returned, she found that a cat had taken away her pet. Rest part of the story will be explained in the next video, so stay tuned for that. Hope you liked the video, and if you did, do like, share and subscribe. Thank you.